Thank you very much. My name is John Little. I'm an IT product manager and I work for the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew. For those of you who don't know Kew, it's a 300-acre botanic garden based in Kew in West London. We also have a sister site called Wakehurst, and that is in Sussex. Today, myself and Edmund O'Driscoll, who's the technical director for Dot3, will be talking about a location-based app that we've been able to produce for Kew Gardens. That app uses a network of beacons, and we think at the moment we've probably got the largest network outside for engagement with visitors in the country. If you haven't been to Kew, we've got a video now for you to watch. It's 1.5 minutes, and it'll just set the scene on what visitors can get from visiting Kew Gardens.
Hi everybody, my name is Ed. I'm the technical director of a company called Dot3. We are the company that produced the Discover Kew app. I'm going to touch on a few points of the background of how we got to produce the app, and also a few kind of key insights we had during the production. I think it was around 10 months ago now that John tweeted that he was playing around with BLE technologies within the gardens. Probably within around 40 seconds, my business partner, Paul, was already on the phone to him saying, "What you up to? Let's chat about this. I'd like to hear a bit more." So we found ourselves in Kew Gardens discussing what really are their aims and what they're hoping to achieve. One of the kind of things that we found was that they had an existing app, and this is a good functional app, but the main problem they had was the content. It wasn't relevant. It wasn't up to date. They just didn't have momentum internally to kind of keep the content fresh, but also they kind of found it quite difficult. So one thing that we did, and we're quite excited to do, was to show them our own CMS system. You can see here is basically this is Dot3's, we like to call it the WordPress of the Internet of Things. One of the things that this CMS system can do is they can really quite easily and fast keep their content updated like WordPress in real time for each individual's app. This is critical, in particular for the beacon interactions. An example of this is that down in, say, their Wakehurst, their Sussex Gardens, they want to do a bark trail. And to be honest, we had no idea how to do a bark trail. Nobody really does. Beacon experiences are all still very new. So what we could do with our CMS system is quite quickly go down, put some beacons up around the gardens, around each individual tree that we find interesting, go back to the office, upload some content, kind of see how it looked, kind of guessed it, and then go out and give it a go. This is really exciting because quickly we could find out firsthand that, oh God, listen, at this particular point, a user won't know that they need to turn left here, or they won't know that the next tree is over there. So we get to quite change on the fly, and that testing and retesting really kind of quite quickly built up a good interactive experience for visitors to Wakehurst. One kind of cool thing about having the Dot3 CMS for Kew Gardens was that we got to empower their staff. They're their people on the ground. The Kew staff are incredible. Like, I can't remember the thing, like 70% of volunteers, they're just there for the pure joy of it. So they actually love their products. They love the gardens. And we actually were aiming to be able to focus on, say, like the Orangery, which is a cafe there, and empower people in the cafe to be able to change the content on the app, and particularly the beacon content. So if you can imagine, you walk into the Orangery cafe, and in the future they'll say, listen, here's the specials. This is the relevant information you want to know at that particular time. And we're going to empower the people in the cafe, the manager, for instance, to be able to change that content on a daily basis. One of the kind of insights for Kew is that obviously we're installing these beacons in an environmentally sensitive area. So we had kind of new problems, new challenges. And the truth is that badgers and squirrels, they love to eat small little plastic things around this size. This is totally new to us. We didn't know how to do it. So the challenge like this is the only things from learning, from first-hand experience. And this is basically, in that case, we created a new case for the actual beacons that worked fine, and it was all innate and badger safety, and it wasn't going to kill anything. And it was a bit of a fun time. The other thing is be able to actually look after the fleet on our CMS system. So if like one of the beacons did go missing, one of the staff members can actually replace the beacon itself physically in the actual location, but then quite quickly on the CMS itself. This basically meant the system kept alive quickly and fast. Analytics, and this is one of the reasons that we kind of really got excited about what we could do for Kew Gardens. And that's because beacons is a wonderful thing just to be able to monitor passively and completely anonymously at Kew Gardens of what people's point of interest and how they actually use the app. Like, we know for a fact that with beacons, there's a 25% increase of app usage straight away, just when switching it on. And this is fantastic proof that having beaconized apps in this environment works. Great, and I'm going to hand over to John, who's actually going to give you a bit more of a kind of like talk about the user experience and run through.
So, as Ed stated, we built a proof of concept first of all to test whether the app was going to work. So we've got different environments. We've got glass houses. We've got 300 acres outside. One of the things we wanted to do was to see whether we could make sure that the network was robust. The other thing that we were very conscious of was that people come to Kew to relax, to have a good time, to enjoy the tranquil environment. So we were very clear that we didn't want people just walking around with a mobile phone for six hours or essentially having their experience ruined. So what we wanted to make sure is that the messaging we did use, the content, the pictures, any videos were all relevant to the actual environment that you're in. A little bit later on, we're going to replicate how that experience works for you, and hopefully we have the technology here to do that. And you'll see, and there'll be a chance for you to ask questions as we go through that as well. You'll be able to see how we've tried to do that. And I think if you leave today with one thing, it's about the fact that we can actually now provide content and experiences based on people's locations. So that's really important. We've also got some science information here today, because obviously at the heart of what Kew does, it's a science organisation. So we've got an exec summary, and we've got lots here for you, so hopefully everyone can take one away. We've also got resources on our website as well. As part of the strategic priorities around the science documents, we conduct research into global plant and fungal diversity. We curate and provide data-rich evidence from Kew's unrivaled collections, and we disseminate our scientific knowledge of plant and fungi. One of the key challenges for us over the next 5 years is how we get science in the garden. And we feel that this location-based app will be a real positive for us, in the sense that we can now interpret and get science into the garden in a seamless kind of way. So in the App Store at the moment, we've got a Discover Kew app that's available to download now. The key thing, the biggest advance in the last 18 months is that our phones can now see. And that's really important. And I think one of the things that we wanted to make sure, Ed mentioned our previous app. Our previous app was lovely. It was beautiful. It had QR codes, had lots of lovely content. But what we found was that we didn't really have the analytics to know what people were, where people were going, what people were looking at. And at the moment now we have a bedrock, and we have a platform on which we can kind of roll out experiences and see how people use the app, how they engage with that content, and then obviously we can tweak that content and make it more relevant as we go along. So, as Ed mentioned before, it's a very iterative process, in the sense that we're learning as we go along as well, and we're hopeful that as we progress, the experience gets better and better. There are, for those in the audience who know about beacons, there are some, from a user point of view, there are some impediments, if you wish. First of all, you need an app. So one of the key challenges at Kew is that you've got 4 gates. We're not like a museum, in the sense you can't just hang literature on the walls. We are an open space. We're over 300 acres. And as you walk into Kew, you do have lots of different prompts and lots of different things to take on board before you then experience Kew. So that's one of the challenges that we've been trying to work through, which is how we advertise the app how we provide decent public Wi-Fi for people as well. If you haven't got the app, we'd like you to use our Wi-Fi so you can download it. Obviously, just even getting people to download the app is a challenge for anyone who worries about mobile technology. And then obviously you've also got the fact that we're trying to say to people, can you turn your Bluetooth on? And again, we will learn from that as well, in the sense that even some of the visitors and some of the people I've spoken to when I've been doing user testing, they've downloaded the app, and then when I asked them would they turn their Bluetooth on, they wouldn't. so it stopped that that in its tracks.
They still really have lots of battery consumption from the old Bluetooth legacy. They think they're going to switch on Bluetooth, it's going to just destroy them, but in reality it's
As
far.
part of the user testing, one of the things we did do was turn our Wi-Fi off, turn our 3G and 4G off, and walk around the gardens. Obviously beacons can be used in developing countries as a peer-to-peer network, and when we did that kind of testing, the battery usage was down to something like 2 or 3%. It was hardly negligible. I think obviously everyone's phone is different in the sense that you've got different apps doing different things in the background, and again we've learned from that, because people do see Bluetooth as if they feel that it's going to drain their battery, it's quite hard to convince them it's not. So one of the things that we want to do is, and we've learnt from, is to stop things like the app roaming in the background when it doesn't need to, and things like that. So again, also the user has to agree to push messaging, and from our user testing, when we've been engaging with visitors, one of the things I was keen to do was, we have this network of very passionate volunteers, and they are a great voice, because when they take tours, they take 15, 20, 30 people on a tour. What I've tried to do was to say, can I show you the app? Can you trust the app? Can you see how the technology works? And then if you feel confident enough to mention this when that tour finishes, that will be a great thing, because obviously you have this captive audience, and you can tell them they can go into any eating zone, got free Wi-Fi, they can download the app, and it's almost like a virtual tour. And again, I'll show you some of the screens which kind of bring you to that.
I think one of the best advocates of who's a volunteer at Kew is, I can't remember his name, I think he's 80, maybe that's a bit too old, but about 80, and he's just had a hip replacement, and he goes around Kew Gardens with his iPad, and he gets on his bike and he cycles around testing the zones for us. Like, he does that purely for the joy of it. There's nothing else, and it's fantastic, because like when it comes to proximity content, he knows what should be in certain places. Like, it's really quite key to kind of build relations.
When
like
we
that.
first talked about doing this kind of location-based app, I think a lot of people felt that perhaps the target audience were, the teens to 25, and it was just a young man's game or a young woman's game. Essentially, I think that epitomizes that people do get, if you do it sensitively, if you do it correctly, and you provide the right content, you can tier on, really, really nice experience, and hopefully, with the platform that we have with Dot3, it means that also it's a very flexible platform. We can release. Not all the information is relevant to a beacon, in the sense that we can give lots of information out, and you never have to come to Kew. So you can download the app and never come to Kew, but you still get information. The goals were very clear to us, in the sense that we wanted to test whether people would use their own phones to interpret content. And again, that's something that we've been pleasantly surprised with. I think if you can get people to download the app, as Ed's alluded to, the analytics that we're seeing at the moment means that they're going 5, 6 screens into every experience. So as you enter into a zone, you might get 5 or 6 screens presented to you that you scroll through. We're finding that people aren't dropping off those screens. They are really seeing it through to the end. We also didn't want to be able to, even think about contemplating trying to Wi-Fi a 300-acre site. So what we want to try and do is provide hubs of free Wi-Fi that people can then experience, either some of the beautiful and lovely assets we have, say for instance the Kingdom of Plants video, even Kew on a Plate recently. We've just had a 4-part series on the BBC. All that kind of content could be housed in the app as we go forward. And we also wanted to use it to increase the science in the garden, our history elements, our horticulture, and the offer at Wakehurst, our sister site in Sussex, is a very different offer. It's about meeting and finding out information from 8 North American trees. I think also, just to sum up, we've just got another little video, 2-minute video, just around the our taxonomy challenge, and I think also that will give you a really good indication of some of the work that our scientists do, both at Kew and on the ground around the world. What we thought would be really good is if we could just try and trigger some of these discovery zones. Okay, so what we have information at this very top level, so it talks about our attractions and trees and some of the things that we wanted to get across with regards to science in the garden, practical things like food and drink. But when you hit a discovery zone, say for instance you were a visitor, you already had the app and you came to Elizabeth Gate, what we would want to be able to do is to show you the content relevant to your location.
So do you want to trigger Elizabeth Gate?
As I said, one of the things that we were keen for, I suppose, for us not to do is set up a proposition where people are just wandering around aimlessly looking at their phones and not enjoying the beautiful environment. I suppose one of the things that we, so the way that we've tried to approach this is to give people practical information, tell them the times that they can get onto walking tours as they approach the gate, tell them about the Kew Explorer, which is a route round our 200-acre site. If you then walk off from Elizabeth Gate, you get to a tree that's actually 250 years old called the pagoda tree. Again, the information there is very much about perhaps giving some of the science and some of the information about how we use that tree. Sorry, we'll go back to Elizabeth Gate. One of the key points around, say, Elizabeth Gate was around the fact that we could point up the fact that if you look up at the gate, we've got some lovely Jacobean sculpture that, again, you may have walked through that gate 100 times, but never really taken the time to look up and see what's around you. So that's a really good example of that. If we then walked off from Elizabeth Gate to the pagoda tree, if you want to trigger the pagoda tree. Pagoda tree. As I said, 250-year-old tree. We give the Latin name. We tell you how we look after that tree. I mean, obviously, one of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure that people within the horticulture team, the science team, and people within participation, we were able to show how we, care for the environment, the 300 acres. This is an example. So the pagoda tree flowers. It takes 40 years for that tree to flower. So this is really an example. If you were in Kew and you didn't know what the flowers looks like, we can give you that context. We can show you. So it makes a bit more of a richer experience for you when you enter into that zone. Obviously, one of the things, if you've never had the beacon trigger or you've never used an app that uses beacon, unlike things like QR codes, you don't have to scan. The user doesn't really have to do anything as long as they're saying that they trust that we're going to do it sensitively. So when you enter into a zone, Ed and .3 would have worked out that range. So the beauty about beacons is that you can range from me to Ed to 10 feet to 70 meters. So we've got different propositions going on depending on how we want that interaction to work.
And it depends a lot on the actual what you're trying to interact with. Like, so if you have a statue, you want the interaction to happen quite a bit before, so you actually get the experience when you're actually at the statue. But then again, if you're in a restaurant or a cafe, you don't need you could tweak the beacon to have intervals of like 350, 400, save some battery because people are going to loiter there for a while.
So the Palm House is probably one of our most recognisable landmarks. Again, we can use that as a prompt to talk about some of the things that's in the Palm House and talk about Kew's advisory role. We've got a rich scientific history. One of the things that we wanted to do was, in the Palm House, there's probably thousands of species of plants, so we could never do it justice in one small app that to try and cover off everything that's in that Palm House. But we can lead you up to the door and say, please just go and explore. Please go and see what's inside.
One of the most amazing things about the Palm House is that you walk in and there is lots of signage, do you know that this plant makes rubber, really interesting trinkets. But they're very stationary. They're beautifully made and they're once off. They're going to be there probably for the next 10 years. The kind of great aspect of this is that this can be quite quickly updated. And modernize if need be.
And also, one of the other things we did was work with our publishing team, who were brilliant in being able to provide content that we have out in books. So we've got a beautiful historic book of Kew. And again, you know, the Palm House, there's a network of tunnels underneath there, Victorian tunnels. That's the kind of, again, it's that location-specific information. What we wouldn't do is at the Palm House tell you something that's irrelevant to you, because the whole premise was every time we put something into the app, we asked ourselves the question: is it relevant to that location? Is it relevant? Is it relevant content? So that gives you an indication of you know, that kind of how we've tried to use the location and then tried to then add relevant content. Yeah, and we've been able to unlock history. We've been able to unlock information about our trees.
Just the content at Kew is actually kind of incredible. Like, we haven't touched it at this point, but we are working like alongside them, the library as well. And for instance, they have all these old letters that goes back from when Darwin was sailing around sending back these letters. These incredible pieces of history that are currently only being digitized now. So although the content is all there and it's bountiful, there's more happening, and it's not just more content being put online or digitized, but it's also like this. We have these letters that have come from the library, and they're basically talking about the old plantations out in Canada when they first when they first landed, and this is like living history that, you know, they don't have that much history over there. So, you know, it's good to give them a bit more, and this is the kind of material that's becoming live on a daily basis.
I think, yeah, one of the challenges has really been to make sure that we're not, you know, trying to overstretch and do, you know, not do that amazing content justice. So we were very targeted. We were very specific. It is a rolling project, and one of the things we would look to do is to use our foundation to look to be able to then kind of secure some more funding so that we can do other things. But at the moment, it was very much around unlocking some of the content we'd already produced, being able to provide that in the locations, and hopefully, you know, from a user experience point of view, the user doesn't have to do too much. I mean, interestingly, we're getting information back from staff saying, actually, I've downloaded the app and I'm getting pinged a bit too much. So it's getting the relevance and being able to let them toggle their location services off, maybe if they don't want to see that interaction. Lastly, we could do something just at Wakehurst for the pignut hickory, or one of the trees at Wakehurst. The proposition at Wakehurst was very much about meeting the tree. And from an interpretation point of view, we've been working with our interpretation team. That was very much already there, in the sense that this may have been used in, say, a leaflet a couple of years ago, but it just maps across beautifully to what we wanted to do. So what you do is you meet the tree, and you get, you know, the Latin name, and you get a bit of information. Uncover Why Bark is brilliant. That's a chance for us to tell you about, you know, the actual specific bark and the tree itself. Discover Kew's story around that. Obviously, as you can see from some of our videos here today, we are involved all over the world. We're doing lots of innovative and you know, really amazing projects. So what we want to try and do is to try and provide that context to people, so that they're aware of some of those stories, and then take the bark challenge. Again, that might be, put your hand on it. Is it wet? Is it slimy? Especially if you've got, say, children, or you're on a school trip. That's the kind of thing where we can get some of that information across and just give it a different context. So that's the Beacon experience at the moment. Obviously, I would ask you to you know, come and visit Kew, come and visit Wakehurst, download the app.
Positive reviews.
Yeah, give some positive reviews, and then just, you know, walk around. And one of the things that we ask for is feedback. So obviously, you know, if you had some, you know, good ideas on how we could, you know, further enhance that user experience, then we'd be receptive to hearing it. I think the last point really is around how we can now deliver content and experiences at Kew and Wakehurst that are based on people's precise proximity to things in the physical world, and that has allowed us to produce the app with Dot3. To also talk to lots of different people. We've had lots of different museums and other people come in that are interested, because we're one of the first people to be looking at this. I work as a product manager in IT, and again, our team we were very keen to make sure that we were using kind of product management principles. We built a proof of concept. We did it quite cheaply, and then we went out and asked for expertise externally to help us deliver that. And hopefully, we've got a good first proposition out there. But as I say, we're learning as we go along, and we learn every day, really, don't we? From that point of view. Okay, so did anyone have any questions?
Hello. I just wanted to say that it sounds incredible. What I was interested in knowing is, do you have any plans to link up with national trust houses or heritage sites and do the same thing?
So obviously Kew exists, and we have 2 sites. We are part. Wakehurst is part of the National Trust network, but at the moment there are no plans to do anything further with National Trust. It's very much specific to the 2 sites that we own and manage ourselves.
Yeah, I know on kind of .3 sides that we can't really go into names, but we have talked about kind of outdoor spaces doing similar projects.
I think, and also I would add that I suppose if places such as the National Trust or any areas like that, if they felt that they could use that and provide really good content in their specific locations. I know they've got a network of say 400 different places, so that may be a big challenge, and it would be a very big app. But if they may want to look at trialing things, but obviously, as I say, I can't speak for the National Trust. But if we're successful with getting people to like our app, then it might be something that's on their radar.
Yeah, John, you mentioned that there's these larger locations have up to 400 different venues. One of the things that we haven't actually shown you today is the geolocation aspect of the Kew app, which actually can change from being at Kew to Wakehurst. They're very much different apps. The branding changes, the color scheme changes when you're between where you actually are. And say if you go into Wakehurst now, it knows where you are. It changes to the app itself for, I think it's 24 hours for your visit there, and that can actually happen in a different scenario, say for a different company, anywhere else really.
I mean, one of the things that happened, Wakehurst never had we had an app that was based primarily around the Kew experience. So one of the good things that's come out of this project is that we now have Wakehurst content, because we've got the biggest bio hotspot in the world at Wakehurst. We've got the Millennium Seed Bank. So in order for us to get that message out, you can adopt seeds, you can sponsor different things. That was really important to be able to have a proposition that allowed Wakehurst content to come alive. And as Ed said, that geofencing has really helped us, because whereas before it was always a challenge, how do we get content relevant to 2 sites in one app? Now it's done seamlessly, in the sense that it just picks up your location and says, right, you're in Surrey, we'll give you the Kew content. You're in Sussex, we'll give you the Wakehurst content. And that, that was a real positive from the experience, from the technical side, not but from a user side as well, hopefully.
It's a shame, because I won't be able to show you too much the back end, our CMS system, but really it's kind of when we link it to WordPress, that's our aim, to make it as simple as, and you can really link content, and basically it's a content architecture that you can create channels and attach entries to those channels, and then you can actually place them to individual locations. So it's not just down to proximity like a tree, but it's also proximity of a zone, of an area, a grouping. It's Wakehurst and then Kew. So you do have quite a lot of control about how you wish to actually use the content that you publish.
How are you delivering the content? So when the person downloads the app, are you having to download the content at the time you interact with the beacon, or do you download everything in one dump at the start when you grab the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, great question. So that's what we're trying to, both. Well, we can do both, basically. We can do both, and this is something that we're trying to learn at the moment, what is best. So what happens now is that if the person downloads the app, I think it's something like 3.4 megabytes. It's actually a very small app on the App Store, and it's seeded with some pre-existing content, very kind of basic, kind of top-end stuff. So so the user downloads it, can see very kind of a few channels, few entries, and then at that point they can go into Wi-Fi or within 3G, and they can actually download the further content. That's how we're doing it at the moment. Saying that, we could pre-seed the app with up to 50 megabytes worth of content. and then see how it
Well,
kinda
one of
goes.
the things, because we're on a kind of roadmap over the next 12 months, one of the things we've got is a Spices Festival happening at the end of May. So we're going to be linking 12 audio files to 12 different beacons, so that, again, as part of as we progress with the app, we want to see whether people would listen to the audio relating to 12 different spices. But again, because of the content management system, it's not just serve up a specific piece of content. We can give a richer experience in the sense that we can give some nice pictures, nice content as well, to make a kind of well-rounded thing. So if people wanted to skip the actual audio but still see information about that particular spice, they can. But again, it's still a bit of a learning. We're still trying to learn to see whether is there an appetite for people walking around using audio. And we've got assumptions, but I think is that kind of evidence, not opinion, rather than just using people's opinions. We want to provide the evidence to say, well, we tried that. We had these amount of people hitting these amount of zones, and all of them stream this amount of audio. We won't know until we try to a certain extent.
But I think with just on audio, I think that's where beacons are coming incredibly exciting, because if you can imagine an audio tour through Kew, but yet there's suddenly, you can detect there's a bottleneck at the Palm House. Too many people wanting the audio tour there. You could see that in real time in the back end and just change the audio tour. So the people at the Palm House have less content, and you could just push everybody through. It's kind of that kind of real-time updating system that is quite
I've
exciting.
been talking quite a lot to a network of museums, so V&A, others are really kind of interested. And I'm sure they're doing very good things around beacons and other things. One of the things that is really important for things like this is that you're not on someone else's pre-described tour. If you walked into Kew and you hit zone number 4 beacon, whatever you want to call that, and it triggered some audio, and then you just wandered off somewhere else and it triggered it, it's your tour. It's not someone else's kind of preset tour saying go here, go here. And I think that allows us a lot of flexibility in the future, because as we said, some of the analytics will get better as we port to a kind of better environment with regards to seeing how long people dwell in zones, how they're doing specific things. But I think that's the key element, which is as a user you're in control, which as long as the actual product is good and people are using it and they like it, that's a really positive thing. It's just if we don't get the content right, it won't be very good. So
use the Kew slogan, delightfully lost.
Yes,
that's
delightfully lost. Yeah, we've got reports out previously about being delightfully lost. So we haven't rushed into really. We would never really rush into doing something very quickly around making making it not a nice user experience. We want to try and make sure that what we've put out there people get and people use, and then we would build on that as we go along, hopefully. So but as I say, the more people use it, the more people feedback, then we learn from that. Already we've got things around, we've had questions around what are you doing with our data, because obviously beacons are, in America they're used in other ways, perhaps a bit more around the retail elements, and it can get quite kind of specific around tracking people. We've been very clear to say that all of that information is anonymous, and all we want to do is to learn from each of those zones what people would like to see more of and what they'd like to see less of, really. So we've been quite clear about that, and then also we've been clear about the fact that we'll be changing the fact that the app won't be roaming in the background. You have to physically turn that on, because again that was user feedback saying we don't like that. So again we've tried to take on board people's comments and views and kind of do that sensitively. Question over there. One over here.
Hi, congratulations first. I think the product you created is quite mind-blowing. Just considering the experiences you can enhance before, during, and after the visit at Kews. Are there any considerations in terms of tickets, to buy tickets within the app, to donate within the app, or to enhance the experience, for example, to capture pictures within the app, so going home potentially, or sharing that straight away from the app?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think Ed would probably agree, and Paul, who's here as well from Dot3. Kew are really not well, we're not slow at coming up with lots of good ideas about this app. Part of the problem has been the scope creep has been immense, and that's mainly probably due to me rather than anyone else. But the proposition we first started off with was very much smaller and very less ambitious. But we've been able to work with partners that really wanted to kind of bring these kind of discovery zones alive, and obviously we didn't want to put something out there that was just a bit sketchy and a bit small. So what's happened is we've obviously got this network of 25 beacons at Kew and 13 at Wakehurst. But we've got great plans. We'd love to put a social layer on top of it, so you could actually tweet or pin a picture to a beacon. So at the moment, very much it's all about push messaging. But we'd love to pull your content back as well. So if you were proud of a picture you took of the Palm House, it'd be great if you could actually pin that to a beacon in the future, or you could you could have that kind of social interaction as well. So we're definitely looking at that, and I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility because of the great platform that we're on. Also, we are looking at kind of pulling some of the beacons back that might, from a testing point of view, we were just testing. So at the moment, as I said, we're going to look at 12 beacons around spices, but that will mean that we'll take the other beacons down that are just kind of randomly on the trees at the moment that we've been testing at Kew. So what we hope to do is theme content and have themes, and I suppose the key thing is about flexibility. Of course, one of the key things we would love to do also is to get some integration with our website. So you publish it once and you can draw that content down. And I think that's where we could get more of that messaging around adopt a seed or support us, give a donation. Actually, the easiest way to support us is to just come and visit Kew, because that money then gets used completely into kind of running, helping to run the organisation and fund projects around the world. So, but yes, we are looking at all these, we've got all these great ideas, but it's just a case of being able to implement them in a kind of ordered way, really.
Yeah, but also just exactly, our wish list is really long, and but we just want to get the basics right first. Right, all those ideas, absolutely, we've considered them. Even kind of like my own personal crazy one of attaching a beacon to a peacock at Kew, so
that's
you can
never going to happen.
I really want that to happen. I bring it up quite a lot.
That's not going to happen.
But someday we're just let's get the basics first. We're still trying to learn about people's tolerance to small things like notifications. Like, what is the tolerance? If you opt into it, how much should you accept and how much should you be allowed to be pushed? So we're learning at the moment.
And one of the things that might happen is in 2018 we open the Temperate House again, and that's a £14 million project. Again, for us being out in this space, being able to test and see whether people are using the app, but also using beacons, it may be that beacons are this, very small, the size of a penny in 2 years' time, and again, that will mean that we could perhaps use them in more innovative ways in physical buildings as well. So we don't know until we try, and we are learning. As I say, I think that's part of the message, which is we are. Some of the things we assumed would happen haven't happened, and then we've been kind of pleasantly surprised by other things as well. So, especially around the engagement levels, we're finding that people will keep scrolling, and then I think they're a bit disappointed sometimes that the screen stops. So, but it is, as you can see, it's not. We're not able to provide lots and lots of content. So it's very. We've got beautiful images, we've got loads of these beautiful images that hopefully we can just try and work with the relevant teams to unlock. And then we've also got relevant content, hopefully, that we can try and unlock and tell some of the stories around what's happening at Kew and Wakehurst and beyond, really.
Thank you very much, and congratulations with the new app. It's really wonderful. I was wondering, obviously Kew Gardens, it attracts lots of foreign visitors, it must do. Do you have any plans to link it with any translation apps where people can actually change it to Chinese or other languages, wherever they've come from?
That is a really good question, and a relevant one as well. At the moment, there is I don't know if the lady's aware, but we've only recently put a signed tour into Kew, so you can actually turn up at Kew and go on a signed tour. But that's the kind of thing where I think translation is important, but at the moment we don't have any kind of other languages. We know the 10 most common languages used by visitors, but we had to get the English version out first of all, and then kind of see where we go.
It's interesting because on the analytics you can see already, like you get, because they have a lot of Japanese visitors, and you can already see them downloading the app and kind of seeing, obviously it would be better if it was in their language in the first place.
But again, we can develop. We will look at that as we go forward, because it's an international place. We have 1.3 million visitors at the moment, and our aspirations are to get more visitors. So, can I just say thanks very much? It's Monday evening, and you've taken the time to come and listen to us. So, we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.